Bob Hoover passed away Tuesday at age 94, and he was in the middle of telling a story when it happened. That was Vintage Bob.
So I got dressed the next morning, and here I am now. I'm in the hospital with my feet up and my toenails are bright red.
No matter the venue, Bob Hoover liked telling stories. And why not? No pilot had more aviation experiences than Bob. Like escaping a German prison camp and stealing a Focke-Wulf 190 to fly to the Netherlands.
And all of a sudden I heard this rustling around and I looked, and there were pitchforks coming at me from everywhere. And they were the Dutch, they hated the Germans, and they saw me land in this airplane with German markings on it, and so they obviously thought I was a kraut.
Or why he learned to fly so smoothly.
I went through all of the sicknesses you could ever get, and finally overcome it enough to fly so smoothly, and I did that because I didn't want to get airsick. And so I learned to do everything so gracefully that it amazed everybody.
And who wasn't amazed when he flew the Shrike Commander through his engines out, that's both engines, routine, or poured a glass of iced tea while rolling the Big Twin. After World War II, Hoover became a military test pilot, finding the limits and the problems of just about every new aircraft coming down the line. And there were a lot of new airplanes in those days. He put his rear on the line to test the engineers' solutions to overcoming compressibility and the so-called sound barrier. And he vied with Chuck Yeager to be the first to fly faster than sound in the Bell X-1.
I deserve it, maybe, because I've been hanging myself out in the breeze. And but when Chuck got it, that attitude went out the window. I decided I was going to help him. I never regretted that. I would like to have done it, of course. Everybody would like to be the first to do something
But that was Bob. Unfailing graciousness and approachability. The only person he had to impress was himself.
I did things with airplanes that a lot of people had never done, and it was just because I was pushing myself to prove that I really was going to succeed at the one thing I'd wanted to do so completely in my heart and mind.
Bob said a pilot wasn't Superman, and that's why he almost always wore a suit and tie and his trademark Panama hat rather than a flight suit. He wanted to be approachable. He wanted to tell everyone to follow their dreams.
You know, the most important thing that any aviator can do is encourage others to want to fly. And the best way to do that is to be very humble, very supportive of what they're doing, and make certain that they are passing along, that you don't have to be Superman to fly an airplane, but you need to be understanding of the people that you're flying for and the people you're trying to encourage to become good aviators.
Inspiring others, providing advice, coaching like you just saw, and just an amazing guy to be around. Very uplifting, very inspirational.
Absolutely, and I so have such vivid memories of the 90s at AirVenture and him flying that routine that really nobody else was flying then or now.
Right. He'd take the Aero Commander, do those dead stick landings, one engine, two engines, no engines for those amazing routines. The thing about Bob was it was interesting to be around as he was just so comfortable being Bob Hoover. A lot of celebrity pilots or celebrities in general get so wrapped up in being the celebrity that they're just very uncomfortable with themselves. And Bob was just a comfortable guy, 6'2", skinny as a rail his whole life, and just towered over people. And yet he would take the time to get down on one knee and talk to a kid, provide advice and encouragement to anybody who asks, signing autographs and telling stories, as long as anybody cared to listen.
Yeah, my impression was the same. He seemed completely unaffected by the fame,
right,
and just comfortable in his own skin.
Yes, he definitely was.
And the tributes to Bob have been pouring in, of course. EAA President Jack Pelton said he was a true gentleman and unfailingly gracious and generous. Noted aviation attorney John Yodis fought for Bob when the FAA unjustly revoked Bob's medical certificate.
I guess the foremost characteristic I remember of Bob is his courtesy, his true gentlemanness. Throughout this ordeal, and he really went through quite an ordeal, he never said a bad word about the FAA and NTSB. I can't say that about myself. But Bob was a true gentleman.
And AOPA President Mark Baker remembered the attention Hoover devoted to Mark's young son, encouraging him to pursue his dreams.
He was all attentive in that moment, at that time, with a pretty young boy, and there's lots of stuff going on, and he was focused in that time in communicating and making sure he had the channel open. And I've seen him do it, before and since, but to see him, that close, he was a magician. And I think he's magical in the way he inspired a lot of people.
And we should all aspire to be like Bob Hoover.
Yes, we should. We'll never forget Bob Hoover, of course, and AOPA is truly honored to be part of keeping his memory alive with the annual Bob Hoover Trophy.
The Bob Hoover Trophy will be awarded to an outstanding aviator that truly personifies what Bob Hoover himself stood for. Superior airmanship, humility, humbleness, but also the willingness to share the incredible story of aviation and every piece of aviation with any generation from now and going forward.
The trophy is a replica of the Bob Hoover statue that stands in the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum's Udvar-Hazy Center. An honoree will be selected each year. Fittingly enough, the 2016 honoree was Bob Hoover himself.